Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to open this session, the session which is discussing the question of destroying, degrading the Islamic State, or as we call it in Hebrew, Daesh, coming from Arabic. And I think we gathered here a very interesting panel. Actually, as you know, there are parallel panels which are being conducted, and I can guarantee that those that went to the other panels made a huge mistake. Because we have here esteemed colleagues that are going to cover different aspects of this new phenomenon, and it's still a new phenomenon, which is called ISIS. We will divide between ourselves the responsibility to shed a light on different aspects of this unique phenomenon or unique organization, if you wish. Let me introduce, first of all, my colleagues and what are the subject matters that they are going to cover. And then, with your permission, I would open with my presentation, and then each one of my colleagues will follow. And we'll leave some time, of course, for Q&A in the panel. We'll see how much time we would have for that. So I would present the case of the ISIS phenomenon, trying to cling this phenomenon to the process of the tectonic changes in the Middle East, and I refer to what is being wrongly called the Arab Spring, and how does the ISIS phenomenon is being connected to this Arab Spring. And then I would ask Dr. Eitan Azani to speak about the ISIS strategy, which is a quite unique strategy. I will introduce Dr. Azani right now. He is the Deputy Executive Director of ICT, the Institute for Counter-Terrorism. He is the head of the BA and MA specializations in counter-terrorism and homeland security at the Lauder School of Government, and here at the Interdisciplinary Center. He is the former head of the military intelligence in Lebanon, and he also testified on the subject of Hezbollah, one of the subjects that is very well informed, in front of the United States House, the House of Representatives, and the European Committee and other distinguished forums as well. Dr. Azani wrote one of the most important scholarly books on Hezbollah, which is called The Story of the Party of God, from Revolution to Institutionalization. Couldn't you choose something easier than that, Eitan? No, you're breaking my teeth. Okay. After Eitan, we would listen to our friend and distinguished scholar, Dr. Azim Ibrahim, who came especially to this conference and to this session. And Dr. Ibrahim is an expert on strategic policy development. He also advised to many world leaders in the recent years. His PhD is from the University of Cambridge. He served as an international security fellow at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, and also as a World Fellow at Yale, and an adjunct research professor at the Strategic Studies Institute. You didn't miss any important forum, Azim. And he currently is the executive chairman of the Scotland Institute, the Harris School of Public Policy, University of Chicago. Last but not least, will speak my friend and my colleague, Colonel Reserve Lior Lotan. Lior is the former executive director of ICT, the Institute for Counter-Terrorism, here at the Interdisciplinary Center. He is the former commander of the IDF hostage negotiation team. He is also the former commander of Counter-Terrorism unit, and he is currently serving as the coordinator of Israel POW and MIAs altogether. Thank you for coming, Lior. And with no further ado, I would like to open with my presentation, trying to put the phenomenon of ISIS in a certain framework that I think we should understand that along those lines. And as said before, when we talk about ISIS, when we talk about the breakout of the organization, I think we should try to understand that in a direct connection to the tectonic changes which are happening in the last decade before the Arab Spring and definitely during the Arab Spring. And this is not a very good picture of mine, but I put the picture here because we have among the participants, among the crowd here, students. Our students coming from IDC and from other universities, and I definitely recommend the students, and by the way, anybody who think about a second career, to consider the career, the scholarly career, to become a scholar. There are many reasons why I would recommend to be a scholar. One particular reason is because every few years you get a sabbatical year. I don't know any other profession that you get a sabbatical year and you can have a full salary and just think and research and write. And I was spending my sabbatical year at Stanford. It was 2008, 2009. And I'm saying that because during this particular period of time, there were few processes that started that gave birth to what we saw later on, in my view, those tectonic changes of the Arab Spring. And for me, it was a very interesting experience teaching at Stanford and UC Berkeley at the time of President Barack Obama was running for first time for presidency. And I imagine that everybody who's sitting in the room now remember what was the first step that President Obama decided to do immediately after he was elected in reference to foreign policy. He traveled to Cairo and he gave the Cairo speech. That was the statement of the new president towards the Muslim world. To cut a long story short, he was trying to make a case that United States is not the enemy of Islam, is not the enemy of the Muslim world, and he would like to open a new page after Bush era with the Muslim world altogether. Immediately after his speech, I was interviewed by the local TV station, and this is coming from this interview. And the first question they posed to me is, what is the reaction of the Israelis to the speech in Cairo? Again, few hours after the speech in Israel, it was night. I didn't know what the Israelis really thinks about it, but on the other hand, I'm a pure Israeli. Even if I don't know, I have some answers. And I said to them, you know what, I think that in Israel there is mixed feelings toward the speech in Cairo, which is a combination of hope and concern. And then they asked me the second question, what is the reaction of the Jewish community in the Bay Area to the speech in Cairo? And I said, actually the same answer. You know, I think there is mixed feelings among the Jewish community in the Bay Area toward the speech in Cairo, which is a combination of hope and concern. And the concern is that when we listen to what he was saying there are a lot of buzzwords. And it seems on the face of it that he doesn't fully understand the complexity of the Middle East, the complexity of the Muslim world, the real challenges there. The hope is maybe that we are wrong and he actually understands it better than us, and something good will come out of this process and we will be one of the benefactors of that. So they were very confused and they asked me the third question, so what is the difference between the reaction in Israel and the reaction of the Jewish community in the Bay Area to the speech in Cairo? And I said, look, in Israel, we have a lot of concern and very little hope. In the Bay Area, there is a lot of hope and very little concern altogether. And I have to say that in a retrospective point of view, when things have developed, and I was reading the public statement of the person that at that time, John Brennan, was nominated to be the advisor for counterterrorism to the White House, to the president, saying something along the lines as if terrorism is not the enemy of the United States. Yes, he was playing with words. As a scholar, I do it from time to time as well. Terrorism is a tactic not be an enemy, therefore terrorism is not the enemy. I think it's a little bit troublesome when you are the advisor for counterterrorism. But then when he said something that can be understood as if jihadists and Islamists are not the enemy, that was even more problematic in my view, and I wrote this op-ed immediately after that saying if jihadists and Islamists are not the enemy of the United States, then who is really the enemy of the United States? Immediately thereafter, we have witnessed in the Middle East the beginning of this process of the Arab Spring. Even the term Arab Spring reflects the euphoric attitude, if you wish, of many people around the world, maybe even especially Americans, that saw this process as a positive process, a democratic, liberal process that will give birth to a new type of leadership that will be much more open to the world, much more liberal and much more democratic. But today, we can go back and analyze what was the outcome of this process. It started with rebellion, liberal rebellions against the regime, but after a short period of time, Islamist and jihadist movement took over this liberal democratic revolutions, and as an outcome of that, the traditional government fell. Ungoverned territories have been developed, which is a honeypot for terrorists altogether. The terrorist organizations that were already been active in those territories became stronger. They took over the prisons and they freed other terrorists from the prisons. They joined them. And of course, foreign fighters, other terrorists came over to support them. They had much better weapons because they took the weapon off the government. And in some cases, at least as we see in Syria, they have also probably gained some access to CBRN, maybe CBR, not N, chemical, biological, and radiological material. When we talk about the Syrian situation, so we know the map of Syria, we know the main areas of clashes, but just to show how chaotic the situation is, just to give you a hint, those are the elements which are fighting as we speak in those different areas in Syria. So you can understand that this is quite chaotic. If we want to put some order in this chaotic situation, I would suggest to differ between 7 groups. The Sunni Salafist global jihadists, which are represented by ISIS, by Daesh. The Sunni Salafist local jihadists, which are represented by Jabhat al-Nusra, which is a fraction of ISIS. The Sunni Muslim Brotherhood organizations, the Kurds, the FSA, the Free Syrian Army, which is the more liberal part that really started the whole process, but now it's quite neglectable. Hezbollah and Assad forces. To give you an anecdote, a colleague of mine, Peter Naumann, who's heading ICSR, was conducting some research about foreign fighters, and he traveled with his staff to Turkey. And he was interviewing foreign fighters getting into Syria and out of Syria. He told us in a meeting that we held that there is a new type of fashion in the Turkish villages bordering Syria. Those are new stores which are being opened there, and you can actually buy the uniforms of the fraction of the group before you are getting into Syria. So he went to those stores and he was looking for uniforms of the Free Syrian Army, and they said, look, there is no demand for that, we don't have any for you. Right now, still it's debatable how many foreign fighters have traveled to Syria and Iraq. In Syria alone, the calculation is that we are talking about 10,000 foreign fighters coming from 60 countries. They suffer a lot of fatalities, but still they have thousands of them that are in the process of returning to their home states or will return to their home states. And we are talking about people which are coming from Muslim countries, but also from Europe, from the United States, from Australia, and from many other Western countries altogether. When we analyze the evolution of ISIS, we need to go back to the early 2000s, and we are talking about this archi-terrorist answering the name, or used to answer the name, Abu Mazen, excuse me, Abu. Please, cut this. Please cut. I hope somebody is editing my lecture. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi was the leader of the fraction of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. He was getting the permission of Zawahiri, of bin Laden himself, to nominate his group as the local branch of Al-Qaeda. I have to admit that from day one, there was a lot of tension between Abu Musab al-Zarqawi and Zawahiri and bin Laden. But then again, he was killed in a targeted killing operation by the Americans, and his successor was Abu Omar al-Baghdadi, which was also killed, and his successor was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the notorious leader of Daesh today. Actually, it's questionable if he's still the leader, because he was probably badly wounded in an airstrike, but still he is in a position that can make the important decisions of the group. Now, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is a different type of architerrorist. He cannot be compared to any other architerrorist that we ever knew. I know it's as if I'm using big words. I'm saying that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is more notorious terrorist, a more dangerous terrorist than bin Laden, than Carlos the Jacker, and every other terrorist, architerrorist that we used to know. And why do I say that? Because Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi did something that nobody dared to do before. In the summer of 2014, after taking over Mosul, he nominated himself as the new caliph, as the successor of Muhammad. Even bin Laden didn't dare to do that. Even Zawahiri, which is a higher, a greater religious authority than Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, didn't dare to do that, but he did that. And by the way, by doing that, of course, he raised a lot of enemies within the Muslim world against him altogether. Even the name Abu Bakr that he adopted actually hint that he refers to himself as the successor of Muhammad. Now, to understand the structure of the organization, we are talking about quite complex structure altogether. We will discuss the question, what is the nature of ISIS? And I would argue that the nature of this organization is a hybrid terrorist organization. When I say hybrid terrorist organization, this is a definition that we use to explain that a terrorist organization is active both on the terrorist military field, but at the same time, simultaneously, is also involved in the da'wah activity, which is the buying hearts and minds, the religious activity, the education, and so on and so forth, welfare activity. So Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has his own deputies. Very interesting to analyze who are those deputies. The deputies of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi are former generals from the Iraqi military. Those people which have been expelled by the Shiite new leadership of Iraq when the American left Iraq. So they were very furious about the regime there. They were unemployed, and they find it as a great source of income and also a source to deal with their frustration to join Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. So ISIS has become very efficient because those people knew what is military activity and was conducting military activity for many years. But what we see also as a hybrid terrorist organization in the red circle is that ISIS have developed also a very complex and sophisticated, I would say, system of district governors, which their responsibility was to run the territories that ISIS took over, both in Iraq and Syria. And in a way, they quite imitated the structure that Hamas has in Gaza, that Hezbollah used to have and still have in Lebanon, and so on and so forth. But also when we are talking about the military structure of the organization, it is quite a sophisticated and complex military structure, which is relying on committees, different shuras that has different responsibilities, the leadership shura, the military shura, the security shura, the economical shura, the propaganda shura, which is one of the most efficient elements of or one of the most efficient propaganda systems when you compare that to all other terrorist organizations in the world. Now, I don't get any sponsorship from Coca-Cola, but still, I've chosen to bring you the main slogan of Coca-Cola for many years. What is the slogan that Coca-Cola used to have all those years? We are the real thing. I'm sure you know compared to whom. So they refer to themselves as the real thing. Why do I use this in my presentation? Because when you analyze the evolution of terrorism, the evolution of terrorist organization through the years, forget about ISIS, through the years, you could see that every time you have this phenomenon that from a very notorious organization, a mother organization, you have few activists that are not satisfied with the level of atrocities that this organization is being conducted. They are criticizing the leadership of the organization, and then they decide to step out and to create their own organization, which will be the real thing compared to the mother organization. So we saw the IRA developing, or from the IRA, the development of the provisional IRA, and now even the term, the real IRA, coming from that. PFLP, George Habash organization, which actually gave birth to PFLP General Command, Jibril organization. Hamas, which refers to themselves as the real thing compared to the Fatah organization. And I would like to argue that ISIS is being regarded or regarding itself as the real thing compared to Al-Qaeda. So there is a competition here, in my view, and the one who's the new fashion, the new trend, this is ISIS, this is Daesh, on the account of Al-Qaeda. And it's not just in Lebanon and in Iraq. Actually, as we speak, every day we have individuals, we have networks, we have groups, we have organizations that are shifting their loyalty from Al-Qaeda into ISIS. And this is a growing trend. And even by any chance ISIS will be stopped in Syria or Iraq, which I don't see it happening in the near future, even if it would have happened, they have other alternatives around the world, in Libya, in Sinai, in Sarbet el-Magdas, in the Maghreb, in Pakistan, and other places altogether. Few words about the war against ISIS, and I would conclude there. Well, in August 8, 2014, President Obama ordered airstrikes against ISIS in Iraq. And a few weeks after that, Dempsey and Hagel, the Chief of Staff and the the Secretary of Defense, were referring to the situation as if it is a war. We are at war with ISIS. Well, frankly, I find it a little bit problematic to refer to that type of military activity as a war. Maybe my colleagues would think differently. But when you are conducting approximately 15, 20, 25 airstrikes a day, and you refrain from what the Americans call boots on the ground, ground operations altogether, I don't really see that as a war against any terrorist organization, let alone as a sophisticated and spread out terrorist organization such as ISIS. Just to give you a comparison, during the Protective Edge operation, Israel had about 180 airstrikes a day in a much, much more smaller territory than the territory that ISIS is controlling, and still it's being regarded as a war. So from the quantity point of view, there is no war here, and I would also beg to argue that when you fight a terrorist organization, and especially a hybrid terrorist organization which control territory and control people, when you do that, there is no other way but boots on the ground. And that's the only way really to defeat this specific organization. But even from the quality, not just the quantity of the strikes. This is something which I took from a statement that was given by the Pentagon spokesperson in the 23rd of September 2014. And among few others targets that were attacked that night, he was showing this, by the way, seems to be as a success, attacking an ISIL finance center in El Raqqa. El Raqqa is the capital of ISIS today in Syria. And there were a few Tomahawk missiles that were used against this facility and so on and so forth. Now, when you look closely, and you don't need to be an intelligence officer to do that, you could see the pictures before and after. And I don't really see the destruction of the finance center. I don't see even a destruction of one floor or even one window. There is a small fire probably that erupted in the roof, and that's it. This is really the way that one should conduct the war against ISIS. My last slide, actually, I think Eitan gave it to me. It's coming from Hezbollah website. It's not only me who actually argue that this is not a real war which is being conducted today. Hezbollah is showing this caricature that the only thing that the Americans' airplanes are doing is tickling ISIS altogether. So with this happy note, I would conclude my presentation.